Hey, everybody. What's up? Welcome to our live. I'm Cassie Marie, an ex cult hopper that has learned all kinds of things about cults over the years. And I share content about cults, pop culture, the connections between all of the culty things. And today I wanted to ask my friend Liz Gale about some opinions that people have when I talk about Scientology celebrities. Liz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Gale. I'm a third generation ex-Scientologist, recent author, and yeah, I here I am.
Perf. Okay, so I want to flush out some of these things because I really like when I talk about specific cults, I want to know as much as I can from the perspective of the ex-members of those cults. I think it's really important to be centered around the people that have experienced it, not just what I assume based on what I hear. And whenever I post videos on TikTok about Scientology celebrities, sometimes they go viral and I get some wild comments about people who think I'm being too critical or that I shouldn't say certain things about these celebrities and other ones. So I want to ask you a couple of the specific questions I get. Recently, on one of the videos about second gen Scientologists, somebody said, like, it's wild that you would put the full weight of Scientology on these celebrities. And I know that that's not necessarily my intention when I make these videos. It's not to put the weight of Scientology on them. But in my opinion, I think it's important that one, we're aware, and two, some of them are more involved than others, maybe give more money than others, maybe promote it more than others do. And I do think that is harmful. So I want to know from your perspective, how do you feel about Scientology celebrities, the role they play, especially since many of them were raised in it? Do you think it's right to bring awareness to the fact that this celebrity is a Scientologist?
Yeah, it's a complicated question for me because I do believe in a right for people to practice different religions to begin with, as well as the freedom of privacy. So it's certain checks and balances for me. Like, if a celebrity are they openly talking about Scientology? Are they trying to disseminate Scientology? Um, I guess to me, their responsibility for speaking out against it is whatever how much they spoke for it when they were in it.
That's a good point.
Does that make sense? I feel really
Mhm.
bad for second and third generation celebrities. Because just because you were raised in something and everything on paper says that you are that, like you went to a Scientology school, and like me, for example, and maybe you are still connected with your family that's Scientologists, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are at heart still Scientologists. So I do have some empathy for someone who might get called out who doesn't really want to be associated with it, but they
Got
kind of
it.
get, tagged along to it.
Do you think, as someone raised in it who chose to spoke out, like, or to speak out, do you think that if they don't wanna be see, it gets really complicated, right? Because 'Cause I'm like, do you think if they don't wanna be associated, they should say, "I don't wanna be associated with it"? Or do you think that opens up a lot of problems for them? Like, they can't really say that because that might either Scientology will get mad at them or maybe their family members that are very in
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
might get mad, so
I feel like it's never a good idea to align yourself with Scientology, even like if you don't have to talk about it, I could see why many celebrities wouldn't talk about it. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, I mean, hi Sarita, hi Cece. Um, if they saw the abuses, if there were abuses that they were seeing, I think everyone should be a mandatory reporter. I don't understand why everybody's not a mandatory reporter. Um,
Yeah.
Then yes, I don't know, it is really complicated, and who am I to judge and who am I to really make that line? But some people go out of their way to disseminate Scientology when they're in it. You know, like even Leah Remini, she said
Mhm.
that she was like all gung ho and she would use her celebrity status to promote Scientology. Then when she left it, she felt like she needed to do the opposite. Um,
Mhm.
I'm paraphrasing what I think I understand she said about her
I feel
her
like
life.
I feel like I've heard that before. I get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Like you said earlier, the extent to which they promoted and advocated for it, at least to that extent, you should say, "Hey, this was wrong," when you got out.
I think so. And then if you take someone like Tom Cruise, you know, who's really used it against people, he's
Mhm.
people saying he's a Scientologist in the you know, in the media. Who is he rude to? He was rude to a bunch of people. Brooke Shields, for example. Um,
Yeah.
that was awful the way that he treated her about her postpartum and you know being on medication. And so I feel like if you're going to make a claim like that, then you open yourself up to a huge debate, and it's now you've called your own religion. He called his own religion into question because he's trying to put it on others publicly.
Mhm.
So then
Yeah.
that's why I think I call out Tom Cruise and I'm like, really don't respect him because he has done so much for Scientology. And there's rumors
Yeah.
these days about him leaving or this or that. And it's like he's going to have to make a pretty big, bold statement when he is ready to leave because he's just been so for it for so long. And I think that's true of a lot of other celebrities, you know, like Catherine Bell or even Laura Prepon. It's like they just kinda say, "Oh, I'm done," later, and I think that
Hear me?
yeah, I think you're glitching out, or I'm glitching out.
I think it's fine. I think I'm hanging on.
Um, yeah, some people just quietly disappear, and that's hard when they were, say, on the cover of internal church magazines. Like, there's a celebrity magazine, and people like Erica Christensen and Jenna Elfman and Jason Lee, and a lot of these guys have been on it, and like you're literally the face of Scientology at that point. And it does make me feel like
Yeah.
those people have a particular obligation, if they do leave, to kind of let those people know they're a person of influence, they're a person of power, and they once used that power to spread Scientology. Then I think those people have a big obligation, more so than maybe someone who's like a film producer who just um, went to school, doesn't wanna necessarily be associated with it maybe as much. They're not saying they are in the media, but
Mhm.
I feel bad for those folks.
How do you feel about people asking, like, to boycott certain celebrities for being Scientologists? Like, not watching their film?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think that someone says we are having issues with this. Let's see if I can make this any better. Um, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I have a hard time with this because I feel like in certain groups of people are really big on boycotting, like, for moral reasons. Like, I can use, like, veganism as an example or vegetarianism as an example. Or I don't know. I just feel like there are certain groups of people that think based on moral issues or morality that we have like an obligation to boycott things that don't align with our belief systems. Super effective because to an extent, I don't know. I think it's complicated. I think it depends on the person. It depends on what they're saying, a lot like what you said, and how much like they're advocating for Scientology. But I also do think it's important to think about how much money they're spending on Scientology. Like, are they active in it to where they're paying a lot for courses? Are they giving a lot in donations?
Right.
Because that ultimately keeps Scientology going. But as far as like you were saying, like a second gen who might have taken courses here and there, who might still be part of it, if they're speaking in favor of Scientology, I think we should call them out on it, but I don't know if like boycotting them and their work does anything other than cause like it can cause conflict too, right? Like it can cause them to double down on like the world is bad and the world is evil and see like all of these people that aren't Scientologists just don't understand. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's so nuanced and complicated and can be said for any celebrity in any cult, right? Like I don't necessarily boycott Selena Gomez because she's associated with Hillsong. Should we all? Maybe. But I don't personally like to call for that when I make videos about them.
Yeah. Well, and like The Simpsons, I guess, is a good example of that for me because I love The Simpsons. I really enjoy it as a
Mhm.
show, but I also know that Nancy Cartwright, is that her last name? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that she's given $21 million to Scientology.
Yeah.
So that I guess I'm torn. I guess I'm torn.
Yeah, and like that's I mean that's a lot. That's a significant amount of money. But are we going to get people to boycott The Simpsons? Right? Like that's the other part of it. Is like are we going to even be able to make a
No.
dent in something like The Simpsons that so many people love so much?
If I'm a third generation Scientologist who's still watching The Simpsons, like in general, then I don't think there's any hope for other people boycotting
Right.
it.
Right. It like yeah,
Yeah. But
it's
again,
complicated.
it's hard to really oh, I've got allergies today. It's really hard to know. I think everybody makes their own line. Do you have any examples? I guess maybe it's example by example. Should we look at these examples and see?
Yeah. Let's look. Let's talk about some of these celebs and how involved maybe they are.
Oh gosh. I guess I am judging her pretty harshly.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is like the hardest for most people, I feel like, because well, I mean, because Handmaid's Tale is essentially like a show about her being stuck in a cult. So I think people really don't like the fact that she's in reality stuck in a cult. And she for a long time people thought that she wasn't. Like for a long time people thought cuz she's second gen that she wasn't maybe participating in it. She hadn't taken courses in a while. And then Erin on growing up in Scientology said that she was in Clearwater recently starting her OT levels. So she had been taking courses and now she's like going up into the big levels on the bridge. So she is spending some of that Handmaid's Tale money, giving it to Scientology. And I think awareness is more important than boycotting. Like I think people should be aware and I think we have to like hope that that awareness either wakes her up to stop promoting it because she also gives interviews where she speaks very highly of Scientology and all the things that it's done. And I just don't think from a public standpoint that she should be allowed to speak very highly on how amazing Scientology is when there's such
Yeah.
horrific abuses that are very well known. Now, is that on
Yeah.
her though? Like, is that
Well,
her
I
fault?
yes. 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 I will be play the
Okay.
devil's advocate here and say yes. Because
Okay.
if you are benefiting on the physical, manual labor and stolen childhoods of kids at their hotels. She's down in Florida. She's eating at the restaurant in there, and she's using those resources as a celebrity. She's getting a special treatment because she's a celebrity and can pay
Mhm.
big money because she's in this show about being in a cult when she's in a cult. So yes, I think she I
Right.
can get every check and balance of her particular situation. Her obligation would be to stop promoting Scientology, absolutely. And then if she ever does leave it,
Yes.
I think there is some damage that's gonna have to be um
Undone.
undone. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. Absolutely. Who's next on here? Can I scroll through these? I can. Okay, so what about Jason Lee? Because
Yeah,
I've heard that he's more someone who it doesn't isn't really in it anymore. Have you
I
heard that
agree, I
as well?
agree, and he grew up in it. He might not have been born in it, but he definitely spent a good part of his, youth in it. Um, See, this is one that I think is really interesting because he was kind of a cool guy, right? Like, he was cool about Scientology,
Mhm.
and then he was cool about leaving it. And, okay, maybe that's a little bit of his brand. He got out. I wish he would speak out a little bit more because he did make it look cool.
Yeah, I agree. Who's
Yeah.
next? Okay, so this one I really wanna talk about because Juliette Lewis has been kind of cagey on being in or out, but she's also in Yellow Jackets, and my friends keep trying to get me to watch Yellow Jackets because there are very cult-like themes to that show.
Mm,
And she's never denounced Scientology, and she has before said that, like, it's helped she's given, like, the Scientology line that everyone's trained to give, like, "It's
mhm,
helped me with communication and blah, blah,
mm,
blah."
mhm.
And I'm surprised that people talk so much about Elizabeth Moss and not so much about Juliette Lewis.
Yeah, that's true. I felt like Juliette Lewis always had a bit of a free pass as an actress and as the particular type of roles that she would take. I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember, why can't I think of it now? The Woody Harrelson movie where they're robbing the banks. What is that called? They're doing a lot of mushrooms. I don't know why I can't remember what that movie's called.
I
Anyway,
vaguely know what you're talking about, but I don't know what it's called.
it was a really intense movie. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. Natural Born Killers. Natural Born Killers. It came to
Okay.
me. And that was one of the few movies I wasn't even allowed to watch, which I thought was really interesting that a Scientologist was allowed to take a role that was so disturbing that a young Scientologist then couldn't watch it. Do you know what I mean? Like a fellow.
Yeah.
Um, she's always been really wild. I think she's always kind of pushed the envelope in Scientology, which I have always admired her for. But it is kind of like, well, if you're pushing the envelope and you're not in it anymore, then say something.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
agree.
mad at her, I'm just disappointed in her.
Yeah, I know, I feel like she's one of those where it's like, she's not in magazines like Elizabeth Moss, like, singing its praises, like, to journalists in depth, but she's
Right.
also, like, still doing the thing, so
Yeah. It's kinda
Okay,
lame.
so you've shared your thoughts with me about Michael Pena before, or maybe you stitched one of my videos or something. I think you stitched or,
Mhm.
like, screenshotted one of my videos and replied to this because Michael Pena is not 2nd gen. He
Mm-mm.
joined because of Jenna Elfman, and
Mhm.
I think he should be called out a lot because he talks about
Mhm.
Scientology all the time, about how it's made his career so amazing, and he's has a successful career because of Scientology, and he thought Jenna Elfman was so cool that he wanted to know what she did, and she talked about Scientology all the time. So, like, I just think we get to be a little critical of him because great that your career is awesome. How about child abuse? You know what I mean?
Ugh, I know, it frustrates me a lot. But it's also interesting that the number one, like, tool is always career oriented. Like, it's a religion, and you are
Right.
joining it, and you're saying your career is better. Usually in my I mean, call me silly, but I thought you were joining most people join a religion, and it's like, I don't know, maybe your career gets better, but it's just such a weird thing to be like, you join a religion to make your career better. So, I feel like it's false
Yeah.
advertising in a way where
Yeah.
it's like MLM. It feels like an MLM. Like, it sounds like he's trying to get
I was just
you
gonna say,
to do more Scientology to make your career better, and he will get a cut as a field staff member if he signs people up.
yeah. Yeah. I know Scientology is so much like MLMs, and that's, like, you do have to think if they're talking so much about their career, did you
Yeah.
join something to better your spiritual health, or did you join an MLM? A very expensive MLM.
Yeah.
Some MLMs are more expensive than others, but I think Scientology would top them all.
Yeah. Jenna Elfman. Look at her being all edgy
Then
in
we
this
have
picture.
Jenna Elfman. Huh?
She looks so edgy in this picture.
She
I'm
does.
disappointed in
She
her.
looks
I'm
so cool.
also really disappointed in her. I think that she has done a lot inside Scientology to make it look normal. I think she might be a bigger celebrity in Scientology than she is really out of Scientology anymore. Um, and I can understand the appeal to her to probably stay in that because she probably is treated like royalty there. But how ignorant
Mhm.
can a person be? She must know what the organization has at least been accused of. She must know.
Yeah.
And so
That's
are we
what I tell people on TikTok a lot is that
yeah.
Scientology is one of those cults that has gained enough awareness, largely because of Leah Remini, largely because of like YouTube and SPTV at this point. Like the reach
Mhm.
is really wide. There have been so many documentaries to the point where everyone in like the cult and even religious deconstruction community relates, like uses Scientology as the cult example. So like
Mm,
it's not even like the cults that are culturally or societally accepted. Like I think a lot of Christian cults, it's a lot harder to talk about them and they get a lot of passes because this is a Christian nation and people don't like to associate some of these Christian cults as cults. But they literally compare those cults to Scientology. So I think that sometimes as a celebrity that has much more access to the world and to like worldly things and are not doesn't have as much information control as a regular
mhm.
parishioner or a Sea Org member, it's like you have to have heard. Like I highly doubt that not a single person, when you mention Scientology, not a single person, "Hey, have you seen your Remin-" like you gotta know. You
She
gotta know.
knows. She knows. I know she knows.
Yeah, she's got to. Okay, so who is
I don't wanna
this?
do it anymore. This is a guy. This is, he's a producer and he's a second generation. I think he's a movie guy. His name he went to Delphi. There's a couple of movie guys that came out of Delphi. His name is Adam, and then
Interesting.
there's another director named Kyle. And I wonder about that because there is like a path into this type of career when you are a second generation or third generation. Um,
Mhm.
and to what obligation then do you have, to Scientology if you enter in Hollywood through your Scientology connections? I just don't know. But he's not that
Mhm.
interesting. We can move on.
I think it's interesting. I think we
She
touched on
she's
Laura Prepon a little bit earlier. Were
Yeah,
you
and
say
she
what
in
were you gonna say
particular
something?
represents the LGBTA plus community, so that's really messed up on her
Mhm.
part if she is repping an organization that's against,
Right.
a group, but then she's benefiting from that group existing because she's playing that character. I think that's when you have
Mhm.
these hypocrisies like that and Elizabeth Moss, those are the people or Tom Cruises or John Travolta's, those are the people that I really feel have a bigger obligation since that's what we're talking about, you
Yeah.
know? I think
Yeah.
those are the people that I would think would have the most impact if they did speak out, and I think that's why I get fired up about it.
Yeah. I think you deserve to. I mostly included Jason Dohring because I love him. And I'm ashamed because he's still in Scientology. But Jason Dohring, I don't know where like his career is right now, but I mostly just know that his dad like founded Neopets and owns ABC Mouse. So the Dohring family, they have big money and his dad is a huge donor. Is that his responsibility to rectify? I don't know. But always like to throw him in there and talk about it because people think it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I bet he's pretty comfortable. I could understand why he might not be bouncing out the door to get cut off from his family. Um,
Yeah.
but again,
I mean,
this is a person in like a privileged position. He would have always been in a privileged position, and I do think that if you're going to use the privilege at some point, the piper's going to come to call. Like you have the world doesn't just isn't so easy. Like if you stand behind Scientology for your whole life and benefit from it, at some point I don't know, at some point you're going to have to answer to that, I think. I know I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to answer this one question right here. Japan of Green Gables said Doug Dorang didn't found Neopets, he bought them. That's correct. I say it like out of ease that he founded Neopets. He bought it in its early stages, like he didn't develop it. It's a bit of like an Elon Musk situation, how everybody
Mm,
says Elon Musk created like Tesla's electric car technology. He did not. So a
mhm.
genius, like an actual smart person, developed it and he bought into that and
Right.
made it a big business thing. That's what Doug Doring did. But he made a lot of money off of it. And I do believe he founded ABC Mouse. I think he was like on the ground of that as well.
Mhm.
Really quickly before we wrap up, I quickly wanted to touch on Katie Holmes and am I gonna forget Nicole Kidman? It's been a long day. Who forgets Nicole Kidman's name?
My
That's
goodness.
crazy. Um, I just mentioned that they had both taken Scientology courses when I was making some Met Gala content, and
Mhm.
people tore me to shreds in the comments for calling them former cult members. They were when they
Huh.
were married to Tom Cruise, they were former cult members. They were victims of Tom Cruise and the cult just like everyone else, but they were. Do you think some people I've heard are kind of upset that they don't speak out? Do they get a pass in your opinion because of all the horrific things they experienced? Or did they just experience horrific things alongside everyone else and every other Sea Org member that literally had to flee from the Sea Org with their lives?
I think they get a pass, but maybe not for any of those reasons. I would
Okay.
suspect that both of them are legally gagged to speak about it. That would be my best assumption, was that in their divorce proceedings, in whatever, because Scientology is so important to Tom Cruise, that they're not allowed to talk about that. And there's so many things I'm sure they're not allowed to talk about. So I think they get a pass for that reason. I don't internally in Scientology, they get a have a very both of them have very bad reputations. They sort of
Mhm.
are known to be evil succubuses that, you know, sucked onto beautiful Timothy Cruise.
Yeah.
And haha, they didn't get away with it. But how many more marriages does he have to have? And wives that just like, okay, here's the thing. While Nicole Kidman has not spoken out, she's never done Scientology on her own. She is
Yeah.
known not to be a Scientologist. She's like a Catholic or something. Like, she's known to have
Yeah.
an active faith other than Scientology now, where she used to be a Scientologist. She doesn't have to say that. That's already
Yeah.
happening. I wish she would say it, but I don't think she can legally. That's the
Yeah.
assumption I have. Same with Katie Holmes. If Holmes couldn't go on a public date for 5 years after after divorcing Tom Cruise, she couldn't talk shit
Mhm.
about his religion.
That is my biggest thought with Katie Holmes and Nicole Kidman is there's likely
Uh-huh.
NDAs involved with
Yes.
divorce agreements,
Yes.
and they could choose to break those, and I do think that they maybe would be fine, but I think it's just a lot more layered and complicated and nuanced than any of the other celebrities that we've talked about.
Yeah.
And I do feel for them, and like that's the story of a lot of former cult members. That's the story of a
Mhm.
lot of people who have left. But would I, in their position, like risk all of that to speak out? I don't know that I would be better than that, you know? Like I don't know that I would. I feel like there's just a lot on the line for them. I don't
Yeah, and I
know.
think they all, being a mother is such a I would assume that's what you go after. That I'm
Yeah.
assuming that would be the link that it's like, well, we're gonna make sure you never see. that kid or whatever it is. I'm a total conjecture right here. But if I'm
Yeah.
looking at
No,
how
for
L. Ron
sure.
Hubbard, like I was talking this morning, L. Ron Hubbard was his second wife that he like kidnapped their child and took her to Cuba, and his
Mhm.
whole thing was trying to like destroy her so that his wife, soon to be ex-wife, so she would go away and just like not
Right.
say anything, not bother. And she signed things saying she would never speak out again bad about him. And then you have someone
Yeah.
like Paulette Cooper, a famous journalist who wrote bad reports against Scientology, and he went after L. Ron Hubbard went after her. Same thing, like
Right.
to be so intense to shut them up. So I understand a lot of it with the kids. Maybe when they're older, maybe there's time things on these NDAs. Maybe when they're old
I
women.
was just gonna say that. I'll like also when Nicole and when Katie, when both of them left, there was not the level of protection speaking out that I think more people have
Right.
now because so many people, because it's so much more well known, because so many people are speaking out. That is fairly recent for Scientology. So it could be
Yes.
like one of those things where had they chosen to speak out like when this was happening or even shortly after, they really likely had
Mhm.
no protection whatsoever and legal stuff
That's true.
and. It's just like so many extra layers.
Mhm.
So I get it.
Well, and yes, I know. And Katie was so smart about the way she got out. Like, I remember how she moved to a very public apartment. I mean, it was just like in Manhattan or something where she would be, um, the paparazzi could have eyes on her all the time. But that also means
Yeah.
Scientology can't as much. Like, they'll get called
Mhm.
out. There are already eyes on her. So I thought she did a really amazing job of making herself like known without having to say it. So
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Someone here, Sarita, saying that Katie's problem is she's worried about Surrey, yeah, and I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The things we do for love, and I see it more likely that Katie is being quiet because of the NDA, and she's doing that for love. That's the way I perceive it, and isn't that
Aw.
funny? Like,
Yeah.
maybe there's situations like that with other celebrities that I'm being super harsh on. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we really don't know. I do
Yeah,
also think, like, part of it with the celebrity thing is, like, when you're in the public eye, you're going to be scrutinized for those things. So I
yeah.
don't think we're, like, hurting their feelings or ruining their lives by calling them out for being part of Scientology. You know what I mean? Like,
It's
people's lives
true.
are actually getting ruined in Scientology, but, like,
Yes,
how many times have we screamed from the rooftops how much money Nancy Cartwright is giving to Scientology? It's not affecting her in the slightest. So, like, that's my other thing when I mention
right.
celebs that were part of it or are still in it, it's like, I'm not hurting their feelings. I'm not ruining their lives. But Sea Org, former Sea Org members and current Sea Org members, lives are being ruined right now, and people
Yes,
have lost their families, and so I don't have quite as much empathy because I'm like I'm not hurting them, like I'm making people aware.
right.
If they can't handle being talked about, then maybe they should look at what they're part of, and they're welcome to do that anytime.
I wish they would. I wish they all would. For all you celebrities out there watching, Google your
Just
own
stalking us on
religion.
YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been super fun. Is that the last one
Yeah.
on the list, or did you have one more on
I
here?
think they were the last 2. Yep, that's all I
Okay, cool.
had for today. Just wanted a quick chat about how we feel about calling them out.
I love that. I really I feel that my opinion is it vacillates. It moves back and forth quite a bit. And I obviously have personal
Mhm.
biases against particular celebrities that I just like more than others already. And I think I give them
Yeah.
more of a free pass. But hey,
I think
I'm
we
human.
probably all do that in different
Yeah.
ways. We're all human, and that's the other thing. Like, we're all human. We all have our things, we all have our biases, we all have,
Yep.
the baggage that we all carry through life, and I get that.
Yeah. Look
But
how
also
happy he
Tomothy
looks
Cruise.
here.
Huh?
He looks genuinely happy in this photo, Tom
He
Cruise.
does. He does.
And then
His
it all
Nicole
went
Kidman
wrong.
days were before he went a little
Yeah.
publicly.
Look at their height difference. She was wearing flats and he's wearing shoes, lifts.
I'm sure he's wearing pretty big heels and that.
Yeah,
Pretty big boosters.
right.
All right,
All right,
Liz. Well, thank
everybody.
you
Thanks,
for doing
everybody.
this. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll do a lot more of this soon.
Yeah, we'll have to reconvene. Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.